Minutes before midnight, the base commander, Lieutenant Colonel Michael John Conrad, raised the alarm when ground surveillance radar picked up the movement of a large formation in the jungle. Lemon's unit rushed out to their positions, only to find no one was coming out of the jungle. Lieutenant Colonel Conrad opened fire at the hidden enemy to let them know they were aware of their presence. The NVA did not respond and remained silent, so Lieutenant Colonel Conrad ordered the men to stand down and return to their beds. That was not an easy thing to do for Lemon and the rest of his company, knowing that the NVAs were somewhere out there ready to attack. To ease the tension, they took marijuana. 2 hours and 17 minutes past midnight, the first North Vietnamese rocket hit the communication antenna.
Vito is a 20-year-old draftee from Philadelphia. A photographer before he entered the Army, Vito is now a squad leader, responsible for the lives of a dozen men.
Well, it's all a shotgun. What we basically use it for on the LZ and I guess even out in the field, so if you want to know. Is we use the shotgun from a ball. You know, you just put the ball in a chamber and all. Paul, let me borrow that ball from you. I heard this is probably all SIDS and we're getting busted, but I don't care.
Shotgun.
What's happening here is also happening to some extent at virtually every other American installation in Vietnam. Recent surveys estimate that well over 50% of the soldiers in Vietnam use marijuana.
You get really stoned. Then, you know, who cares about the war? This war.
The U.S. military is battling an enemy within. For the first time, Navy SEALs are talking to us about drug abuse in the ranks, and David Martin is investigating this.
I'm sitting in this chair because I'm not proud anymore to be in the community because of the direction it's going.
These 3 Navy SEALs, 1 active duty, 2 retired, agreed to talk to us on camera if we disguise their faces and change their voices to protect them from retribution.
People that we know of, that we hear about, have tested positive for cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, marijuana, ecstasy. That's a problem.
How prevalent is drug abuse in the SEAL teams?
It's growing. The drug use, it's growing.
Last December, as this email shows, the SEALs halted all training and ordered a safety stand-down because of the drug problem.
I feel like I'm watching our foundation, our culture, erode in front of my eyes.
Captain Jamie Sands, commander of the 900 SEALs based on the East Coast, had been on the job for just 3 months, and already 5 SEALs had been kicked off the teams for using drugs.
I feel betrayed. How do you do that to us? How do you decide that it's okay for you to do drugs?
John, you want to shout? Dude, it's Tuesday. We got PT in the morning. Man, stop being a little bitch.
Truth is, I'm tired. Options are few. I'm trying to pray, but where are you?
I ain't gonna make it.
I'm all church out.
I gotta go sit down. I ain't gonna make it.
I can't.
Now I told him, go to hell, sir. I'm above your charge anyway. Yeah, I'll take it.
Every year, 20,000 soldiers go to the Army substance abuse clinics. They go there either because they're sent by their commanders because they've had some kind of alcohol or drug-related problem, or they go there because they simply need help. At the clinics, they get screened and assessed to find out whether they have any kind of drug or alcohol-related problems. Psychologist Wanda Keir, who just retired as the Director of Clinical Services for their Army program, talks about what that program has to accomplish.
The clinical ASAP is to support Army readiness through providing clinical services to the soldiers who are impaired with substance abuse issues.
After 14 years of war, American soldiers can be suffering from any number of issues. They can have post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, be having chronic pain with wounds or injuries, and they may even have thoughts of suicide. A nexus for these problems can be the abuse of alcohol or pain medication.
In terms of trends, we see particular drugs becoming popular in some locations, but the most abused drug is alcohol still, and it's been that way practically forever in the Army.
In 2010, the Army shifted its program for treatment of soldiers from the Surgeon General's office to the Installation Management Command.
And I see Kramer, his dead body, Rodriguez, his dead body. I see Marlo blowing up in front of me. I see the dead enemy hanging in a tree, bodies bumping against me, and I don't know if it's theirs or ours. If that nightmare gets so bad, I can't wake up and realize it's just a nightmare, I will light that pipe up. I'll be a criminal. I'll go back to sleep. But next morning, I will get up at 6 o'clock like I always do. 4 days a week, I go to the gym, I run, I help other veterans. I couldn't do that if I was on them damn drugs the VA had me on. It might not be for everyone.
Drugs, but what about drugs prescribed by the US military? Exhausted, PTSD-ridden soldiers are a liability on the battlefield. They don't perform their duties well, and they're more likely to make mistakes that cost lives and lose wars. It kind of makes sense then that militaries experiment with drugs that might enhance their soldiers' performance. As in World War II, amphetamines were the big ones for the Americans in Vietnam. This time, however, the military issued its personnel a stimulant known as dexedrine, which was about twice as strong as the amphetamine they used in the Second World War. Between 1966 and 1969, the US military ate some 225 million stimulant tablets in Vietnam. Veterans of the war associated dexedrine with heightened senses and alertness, increased aggression, and feelings of bravado and invulnerability, at least while they were coming up or straight up fried. The come down was a different story. In Shooting Up, Kaminsky refers to soldiers becoming so irritated that they felt like, quote, shooting children in the streets. Kaminsky also states that amphetamines were to blame for some incidents of friendly fire and violence against civilians. Quoting a story about a commando nicknamed Bill, who, addicted to amphetamine, was so jumpy after 26 sleepless drugged hours on duty that, when startled by a noise, he machine-gunned an accompanying boat, killing and maiming a number of his colleagues. Additionally to dexedrine, the soldiers embarking on longer expeditions were often injected with steroids. Getting jacked up wasn't always what the doctor ordered though. Witnessing and perpetuating the horrors of war, GIs were prone to combat stress.
I'll tell you, how about those malaria pills we had to take in Iraq that didn't actually fight the strain of malaria in Iraq? What's that? There's different strains of malaria, and the strain that this medication fights isn't where we're going? Fuck it! Make them take it! Oh, by the way, that drug that was forced upon us to take causes brain damage. Permanent brain damage. In recent VA medical journals, it's been shown that people have been misdiagnosed with PTSD. They actually have brain damage from the malaria pills that we were forced to take that didn't fight the strain of malaria in Iraq. And that's just one of the issues with Bacloquin, the drug they gave you for malaria. One of the other ones happens to be crazy, weird, lucid dreams. That's right. I used to have buddies that would wake up in the middle of the night naked standing outside their bunks and be like, oh, my bad, man. It's one of those Methylquin nights. They literally called them, I'm going to have one of those Methylquin nights because of the fucking dreams they would get. What is this, some MK?
Trusted with guarding America's nuclear missiles. Now more than a dozen airmen have been disciplined for using and selling mind-bending drugs, including LSD. At least one admitted he could not have responded in a nuclear emergency. Here's Tony DeCopel.
F.E. Warren Air Force Base in Wyoming is on the front line of America's nuclear defense, home to land-based nuclear-tipped missiles like these. Responsible for guarding these weapons are supposed to be on high alert. But in court-martial documents obtained by CBS News, details about a drug ring on base show some were just high, mostly on the psychedelic drug LSD. I absolutely just loved altering
Canadians, including members of the military. Today, the Canadian Forces released new rules for marijuana use among members. The new rules limit use and in some cases completely prohibit marijuana use for members. Both serving and civilian members cannot use cannabis within 8 hours of duty and cannot use while working. If using weaponry, members of the military cannot use cannabis within 24 hours of serving. And there is an outright ban for members working on operations and while in training. The rules give management the authority to choose appropriate disciplinary actions.